Shout out to patrons NQS and McPuffin, and to YouTube member Holly Miller for supporting my channel and supporting my content. Thank you so much, guys.
Do it with a shadow, dancing in the dark. Do it with a shadow, my journey.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome back, not to a subreddit video, to a slightly different video today. I actually have pushed back a scheduled video that was supposed to come out today, and I've chosen not to record another video because of this subject. So originally, I was going to do a video on men writing women, as was requested in last week's video in the comments. I was going to do a video on that, and actually today, there was going to be a D&D video coming out, which I have now pushed back to Saturday, because this just happened 19 hours ago. A guy called John Roderick posted this big long story about how he taught his daughter to use a can opener. And the story in itself, while flawed, isn't entirely bad. There are some questionable methods of teaching, and there are problems in how he taught his daughter this. Now, I'm not going to go into whether I believe this is child abuse or whatever, like a lot of comments do, because I'm not a parent, so I'm not exactly an authority on that. However, I spend a lot of time on Twitter and Reddit and such looking at how people approach these issues, how they approach criticism, and it's very reminiscent of the people that believe in things like anti-vaxxers and the flat earth theory and all of that stuff, in that they tell this big long story, and then when people come with an opposing opinion, they attack this opinion, they defend themselves, and then they attack other people's character. So today we're going to look at this guy's story, and then we're going to look at some of his replies as this guy digs himself into a bigger and bigger hole. He posted this 19 hours ago and he is still defending himself now. By the time this video has come up, maybe this will have all blown over, but currently Bean Dad is trending on Twitter, so it feels apt. So let's take a look at the story, shall we? So yesterday my daughter, 9, was hungry and I was doing a jigsaw puzzle. So I said over my shoulder, "Make some baked beans." She said, "How?" Like all kids do when they want you to do it. So I said, "Open a can and put it in a pot." She brought me the can and said, "Open it how?" "With a can opener," I said, incredulous. She brought me the can opener and we both stared at it. I realized I'd never taught her to use it. Most cans now have pull tops. I felt like a dope. What kind of apocalypse father doesn't teach his kid how to use a manual can opener? Bear in mind, she's 9 years old. I couldn't open a can at 9. So I said, "How do you think this works?" She studied it and applied it to the top of the can sideways. She struggled for a while and with a big dramatic sigh said, "Will you please just open the can?" Apocalypse Dad was overjoyed. A teaching moment just dropped into my lap. I said, "The little device is designed to do one thing. Open cans. Study the parts, study the can. Figure out what the can opener inventor was thinking when they tried to solve this problem. The can opener is also a bottle opener, but I explained that part wasn't relevant." I went back to my jigsaw puzzle. She was next to me, grunting and groaning, trying to get the thing. I should say that spatial orientation, process and visualization, and order of operation are not things she intuits. I knew this would be a challenge, but it was a rainy weekend. She's 9, that none of those things are things that 9-year-olds intuit. Eventually, she collapsed in a frustrated heap. I said, "Explain the parts." She said, "This little wheel is meant to cut. These gears turn the wheel. When you spin the handle, the other wheel looks like a gear but isn't." She couldn't figure out the clamping step, a key element. She's 9. I said, "The tool is made to be pleasing, but it doesn't have any superfluous qualities. Everything that moves does so for a reason." She said, "I hate you." I'm sure she believes that she does. I said, "You understand everything except how the tool addresses the can." She sighed. Remember the phrase, I'm sure she believes that she does, after she said, "I hate you," because this will come back up. Also, what 9-year-old is going to understand the phrase, "have any superfluous? I don't know how you even say that word. Qualities. I wouldn't. At this point, she said, "I don't want baked beans," and marched off. Apocalypse Dad went into full the road mode. Sweetheart, neither of us will eat another bite today until we get into this can of beans. She screamed, ugh, like Lucy Van Pelt. Soon as she was back at the can, the top was all dented now, the lip of the can practically serrated from failed attempts. We studied the tool some more. She really wanted it to be oriented up and down or across the top of the can. The sideways orientation is very counterintuitive. She was fixated on orienting the tool in a few configurations that couldn't imagine other possibilities. I compared the can opener to other tools. By now we were working on anger management and perseverance too. She suggested she open the can with a hammer. There were tears. She's crying now at this. I told her stories of some of the great cans I'd opened over the years. She rolled her eyes. We talked about industrial design and what a funny little device the can opener is. I showed how I opened cans with a buck knife. I rhapsodized about the cold SpaghettiOs straight from the can. Eventually she had it all figured out. She had the placement of the tool, she could turn the handle, and the can would spin. We were down on the floor by this point, and the ka-chunk of puncturing the lid still eluded us. We'd been at it for 6 hours, on and off. We were hungry. I'd been tempted many times along the way to guide her hand. I wanted her to experience the magnificence of the can opener so much I couldn't stand the suspense. Neither of us liked baked beans that much. The cupboards are bare, so it seemed like a paltry reward for this work. Now he's using food as a reward. Bear in mind, food is something that humans require to survive. It shouldn't be a reward, especially in a family that can afford regular food. Also, she doesn't like beans that much. Remember, they stated that literally like in a post or two ago. It's not much of a reward. I'd forgotten how finicky the tool really is, particularly when it comes to the puncture. She had it all lined up, but the cutting wheel is a little wobbly by design, and you have to really get on top of it to clamp it down. You know the feeling? You can misfire the damn thing. Finally, she squeezed down on it, and although it was a misfire, a light went off in her head. Many times throughout the day, she'd yelled at me, "My brain is fuzzy. I can't think of anything else to try." And I'd say, "When your brain doesn't work, trust your hands." She felt the tool click over the lip of the can. I saw it in her hands. By this point, she developed a little ritual of addressing the tool to the can, starting with it on a vertical axis and rotating it to the horizontal while clamping down on a single motion. A choreography. She looked at me expectantly, excited. After 6 hours of trying, you don't want to express too much hope. Was this another blind alley? The can had been through hell. Label ripped off, dented, sharpened, and burred. A veteran of 1,000 psychic wars. She knew though. She set up again, carefully, and brought the swing away to bear on the can of S&W baked beans, with this meticulousness of Roger Moore extracting a detonator from an ICBM in The Spy Who Loved Me. A soft pop resounded in the room, so different from all the other sounds we'd made. She didn't look up. She knew the action. A little baked bean sauce appeared. She savoured each twist until the lid, as I hoped it would, rewarded her by standing perfectly at attention, saluting her effort and ingenuity. She was elated and carried it to the kitchen in both hands. She knew this was a commonplace task and a common tool, but also that this was serious business. She knows her dad and the stock I put in these things. A more mechanically inclined kid might have figured it out in minutes. She factored the scale, but was rightfully proud. I'm proud of her too. I know I'm infuriating. I know this is parenting theatre in some ways. I suffer from a lack of perseverance myself, and like all parents throughout history, I'm trying to correct my own mistakes in the way I educate my child. She sees through this. She's 9. The swing away can opener is a little voodoo doll for us now. It will reappear as an allegory many more times in her life. You can be sure. She knows this too, but this is an allegory of triumph. I wish I had more of those for myself. I wish I had more stories like this. The only problem is now she wants to open every can in the house. Now, the couple of things I want to address in this before we look at this guy digging himself into holes. First of all, this took them 6 hours. I don't know about you guys, but if I take 6 hours to do something, I'm not going to remember the majority of those 6 hours. Also, when I'm trying to figure something out and it takes me absolutely ages, whether it be something when I was learning Premiere or like an editing software or something like that, it can take me a long time to figure out how to do it. And then when I do figure it out, if I didn't understand what it was I was figuring out, next time I try and do it, I have to figure it out all over again. It takes me a while while before I create muscle memory in this thing. And considering it was 6 hours of her building muscle memory and doing various things that didn't work, this might not stick. She might not remember this in a few weeks, a few months. This is not a great way of teaching someone. 6 hours to teach her how to open a can opener when you could have simply showed her? We live in a time where problem solving is not a necessity. We have Google. We have literally all knowledge accrued by every human being amassed onto one platform. Problem solving is no longer a necessity. Instead, we should focus on information gathering. If you had taught her how to find the information, then she could have done this in minutes. However, because you taught her how to try and figure it out, it took her 6 hours. There is a serious flaw here, and it's the same thing with our education system, with schools. They don't teach you how to find information, and he doesn't realize the flaws in his teaching. The fact that it took her 6 hours, and we will approach some plot holes. Basically, someone brings up that it was 6 hours, and he goes, oh, 6 hours is the gap between each meal. She had a big breakfast. Let's just approach the beginning of this, at which point you said, she was hungry, and I was doing a jigsaw puzzle, so I said, make some beans. She's hungry. She had a big breakfast, according to his words. Let me just find that tweet. The best part about being ratioed by these parenting concern trolls, he used the word trolls, is that they keep harping on how depriving my kid of baked beans for 6 hours is child abuse. 6 hours is the length of time between meals. Lunch at noon, dinner at 6. They're literally saying child abuse. You said she was hungry 6 hours ago. That doesn't sound like she's had anything to eat yet. You're depriving her of food when she's already hungry for 6 hours, all right? That's the issue. Now let's move into some of the responses where he digs himself into a big old hole. So that tweet we just looked at, someone replied with, were the baked beans the entire meal? By themselves? My kids would have gone in the other room and ordered Postmates. You should watch Mummy Dearest with her. Great movie. There's a scene in that reminds me of this story. Wait, am I the Mummy Dearest in this anecdote, Hillary? No, John, you're a fucking peach. Jesus Christ. Sign her up for Scouts or take her camping, you psycho. This is not how you teach a 9-year-old child how to use a can opener. How are you still defending yourself is really beyond me. We solve puzzles together all the time. Why is this stream bubbling here? Why is this rock stained? Look at this dead bird. I get that I didn't communicate the humor, but it's insane to me that any of my friends wouldn't see this as a great day we shared. That's not solving a problem. Bear in mind, in these 6 hours, he didn't teach her anything. He left her for 6 hours and, I quote, went back to my puzzle. He left her on her own to figure it out. He didn't teach her a single thing. You don't need to take it this far. You didn't need to take this along for 6 hours just so she could open a can of beans. It would have been over in minutes, and she probably would have a better memory of how to open a can if you had shown her the exact process. But instead, she has a memory of this hazy 6 hours of her trying to figure it out. She's gonna be less sure than if you had taught her. Now let's move into this, because he replies to the same tweet a second time. God Hill, I'm sorry you read all this into my thread. What I didn't say, because I assumed my friends would know, is how much humor my daughter and I share. We were laughing the whole day. I mentioned the crying because she cries 5 times a day. This was a father-daughter day. Crying 5 times a day sure sounds like a healthy relationship you have with your daughter. The humor my daughter and I share. Now let's go back to that time you said, I hate you. I'm sure she believes that she does. Healthy relationships. Wow. So now we're going to take another look at another tweet. Maybe not surprisingly, none of the people who hate my can opener story follow me on Twitter. As far as I can tell, none of the people who follow me hate the story. 2 different worlds. Sometimes a portal opens up between the worlds and you get a glimpse of the void. Now, first of all, there are a few comments replying to this from people that were like, I used to like you and this story has put me off. But he he refuses to address that. Anyway, Will Templeton here replies, "Hi, I've been following you for years and I hate this. Try not to fall into the trap of, these people don't like me just because they don't know me. I'm surprised you're being so bullish about this rather than introspective. I've been thinking about it all day. I think the thread doesn't communicate the humor in our relationship." He's back on that. "My daughter said, 'I hate you,' in a deadpan Woody Allen way. Does that change the story for you? People have no insight into our relationship. We laughed the whole day. I hate you. I'm sure she believes that she does." Well, I think you're responsible for how you communicate too, and I can see how it definitely wasn't written for a wider audience, but I still think the facts of it are worrying. You acknowledge you hadn't taught her, then chose a method of teaching that's unnecessarily arduous. Exactly. By whose standard? It wasn't arduous at all. Most of the people tweeting me let their kid watch 5 hours of unsupervised YouTube videos a day. I consider that a parenting crime. We worked on a project together, and I told the story in a voice my friends recognize as a bit. It wasn't arduous at all. It took 6 hours. She was upset and stressed by it, as you said. The YouTube thing, you can complain about all you want, fair enough, but it is something you've assumed, not something they have said or you've observed. A dozen people have said outright that their kids would have looked it up on YouTube. Their 9-year-old would learn how to open a can on YouTube. But honestly, I can't abide the criticism that a kid shouldn't experience some stress when solving a problem. I think a kid should. A parent saying that their child would know how to look up the information and how to get this information themselves does not mean they're letting their child spend 5 hours a day unsupervised. That is an assumption you have made. And sure, some situations create stress and a kid should know how to manage stress. However, opening a can does not need to be a stressful situation. Knowing how to find that information themselves is going to be infinitely more valuable than a child spending 6 hours figuring it out. If you go to any job when you're an adult and your boss says, "I need you to do this thing that you might not know how to do." If you went to him and said, "Okay, I can spend 6 hours figuring it out with no information, or I can find that information myself, which would you rather me do?" He's gonna say, "Find the information," right? Like, you're not teaching her real world skills here like you think you are. And I don't think anyone is saying you should cushion your kid from stress. Exactly. Or upset. They're saying by the way you told it, you allowed it unreasonably. And that's before we get to the idea of using food as a reward, which is its own beast. It is, food shouldn't be a reward. To which John says, "I'm sorry, I have to mute this convo. I thought you were earnest, and I guess I see that you're trying to be, but you're willfully not listening. I appreciate you trying to engage." John, he's not willfully not listening. He's using the information you have supplied and is telling you how you are wrong. The fact that your response to that is to mute him means it's you that is willfully not listening. Anyway, we're going to go into the last one that I have saved because this is kind of getting a long video. Going back to him again saying that it's people that don't follow him that are ignoring this. Someone said, "I feel like the critics are missing a lot of the boring parts that never end up in a thread like that, like the implicit understanding in a healthy relationship where both parties know when playfulness turns serious." He said, "I did a bad job of communicating that because I assumed it was plain. She says, 'I hate you.'" My camera died, guys. Ran out of battery. "She says, 'I hate you' 5 times a day, always like a sitcom goth daughter because she thinks it's funny. We laughed all day." To which I replied with the exact quote, "I hate you. I'm sure she believes that she does. But it's in a jokey manner, right? Your child saying 'I hate you' 5 times a day is not a sign of a healthy relationship, and it's not something that you should be aiming for. This isn't a good way of teaching your daughter. This isn't a healthy way of teaching your daughter, and this isn't a relationship that you have created that should be maintained in this manner. This is a mistake, and this is something that should be rectified and improved on, but it's a mistake that you refuse to acknowledge. The problem isn't that you did this, although that is partially a problem. The problem is that it has been literally a day, and you are still defending yourself and claiming that you have done absolutely absolutely nothing wrong. Until you can accept your mistakes, you cannot trust that the way you are teaching your child is perfect. If you can accept your mistakes, you can improve the way you teach your child. However, you are refusing to do that. But what do I know? I'm not a parent, I'm not a teacher. I just spend a lot of time on the internet looking at crazy and insane people who refuse to accept their mistakes. This shows all the hallmarks of an anti-vaxxer, of a flat earther, of an anti-masker who gets presented with information and criticism and refuses to accept criticism simply because these people don't know me. That's where I'm going to end the video, guys. I don't know if any of you have seen this whole thing going on. I don't know how many people are going to watch this. However, this is my take on the situation. I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.